G'day, I'm Brian. Today I'm going to talk about Kruger National Park versus private game reserves, more specifically those in South Africa, or even more specifically those in the Greater Kruger Area of South Africa. So let's define what a private game reserve is. Well, they're not zoos, so you don't get an entry fee, walk in, walk around on a footpath or something like that and look at animals in enclosures. They're all wild animals. They eat, sleep, mate, raise young, just like they would in Kruger National Park. They can be run by a family or a company. They may have one or more lodges within the reserve, and they usually have a leasing agreement for the land they're on with the local community. Local community owns the land, and private concessions run their lodges on that land. Some are fully fenced, and some have no fences with Kruger National Park, such as Timbavati, Sabi Sands, Klaserie, and others. One exception is Manuleti, which is primarily a public park, or the area for public visitors, but it has no fence with Kruger. It has private concessions. Public visitors cannot drive on the private concessions areas, and they cannot go off-road, whereas people staying at one of the private concession camps or lodges in Manuleti are able to go off-road for sightings in Manuleti. Private game reserves do not allow day trippers. You must have accommodation booked with a lodge or camp within the reserve. The entry gate to the reserve will have a record of your booking to allow you in. There is a conservation levy to be paid. Some will get you to pay it at the gate on a per day basis, how many days you're staying, times the per day rate for the conservation levy. Some you can prepay that with your invoice when you make your booking. Bookings with a lodge in the private game reserve usually are inclusive of your accommodation, your meals, and 2 activities a day, such as game drives. Some are all inclusive, so no out-of-pocket expenses except for tips and your conservation levy. Let's talk about the pros: exclusiveness. If you haven't paid, you can't stay. Even the cheaper lodges and camps usually have a good standard of accommodation. Close-up sightings at private game reserves are usually better because you're allowed to go off-road. Some have different off-road rules as to what animals you can go off-road to see. I would double-check that before you booked at any private game reserve. If you're interested, if you want to know that you can go off-road if you need to go to a sighting. Controlled sightings of big cats. Well, there's only 2 to 3 vehicles allowed at a sighting. You will be in a lineup, and the head ranger will control the lineup itself as to who will go into the sighting next. And it's usually depending on how distant you were from when the sighting has happened or where the sighting is. So if you're across the other side of the reserve, you usually be last in the sighting. It's going to take you a while to get over there, but they will control that. So it's very well controlled. So no big crowds at all. And obviously you can get into different positions when there's only a few of you, and generally you won't have people barging in front of you. Great if you only have a short period of time and you'll want to see the big 5. Generally you will see them in a far shorter period of time in a private game reserve than you will in a public park, and often again very much more up close and personal. It's better for wildlife photographers, again, because of the close proximity to wildlife you can get, the ability to go off-road, the limited number of vehicles that are around you. A lot of the rangers are well versed in lighting and where to put you in the best position as well. And you will definitely get more images that look like the pros get if you're in a private game reserve than a public park like Kruger. And I think you're more likely, from my experience, to meet new people if you're a social type person. You will meet people in your game vehicle. You go out twice a day with them. Maybe the people you don't want to meet, I don't know. But then the lodges aren't normally that big. Could have 10 to 20 people there. So it's a lot more intimate in that sort of setting. Cons, well, the price. By and large, staying at a private game reserve is expensive. I've done a video on the rates charged by lodges in private game reserves in the Greater Kruger area. I will put that link in the description to give you an idea, again, of the prices for private game reserves in that area. And again, if you went outside of that area, you'll see in general, all private game reserves are expensive for a lot of people. Game viewing vehicles at the cheaper lodges are normally full. That is, because the camps are normally full because of the cost, then there's normally every seat is taken, and there can be some friction between guests over the best seats. I've seen people get in the vehicle half an hour before they are about to go on a game drive to get their preferred seat and won't move from that preferred seat to swap with other people to get different perspectives the whole time they're there. Not all private game reserves are equal when it comes to the amount of wildlife, especially big cats. So again, do your research, read reviews, and see how often they're seeing cats within that reserve, because it's just a fact of the matter. People, more than anything else, people love seeing elephants, but they want to see lions, they want to see leopards. So check that out. Some, like the lodge we stay in the Sabi Sands, do a weekly sightings on their website and give you an idea of what they're seeing every single day. So really do your research on that. Traversing rights, very important. In some reserves, no matter what concession you're on, apart from going right onto someone else's concession, you may be able to traverse the whole of the reserve. Some places like the Sabi Sands, you can only go on game drives within the small section of your concession. So check out who's got traversing rights. Some bigger concessions within the Sabi Sands, like Wondalozi and Mala Mala, though Mala Mala doesn't include itself in the Sabi Sands, make up your own mind on that, are quite large, so they don't need the traversing rights. Places where we stay, or the place we stay, Elephant Plains, has traversing rights with 2 or 3 other concessions, so we can drive on those concessions, and they're in constant communication with the other concessions. So if they have a good leopard sighting, they will call all the other drivers or all the other rangers and let them know there's a sighting there, you're welcome to come and see it, which multiplies by quite a factor your ability to see, especially cats. So check that out as well. There's not always a great diversity of scenery in some of the South African private game reserves. They can be quite dull to drive around on. So maybe watch a few videos on the camps and have a look at that. The sightings may be good, the scenery terrible. So it's just bushveld and can get dry in the winter months, which is just so happens to be peak season anyway. So check out that. And then, of course, there's no self-driving. Let's move on to Kruger. Kruger National Park is managed by SANParks, South African National Parks, a government agency. It's around 2 million hectares, or around 5 million acres, 360 kilometres from north to south and 65 kilometres at the widest point wide. For perspective, Kruger is larger than Yosemite, Yellowstone and Grand Canyon National Parks combined. Accommodation includes self-catering, bungalows and camping at the SANParks managed rest camps, but there's also private concessions within the park. They're usually of a more luxury standard of accommodation. It allows day visitors. Pros. Compared to private game reserves, it's accessible to most people due to the relative low cost compared to those private game reserves. There's lots of different accommodation options, like basic camping to luxury in the private concessions within Kruger Park. The majority of the park can be traversed or driven on, except for the private concessions. So you can go as far north as you want, south, east, west within that area. But you must stay on road or on gravel road, which are designated by the park to drive on. There is no off-roading. We'll get to that. It's self-contained, with lots of the rest camps having groceries, souvenirs, restaurants, restrooms, accommodation, fuel stations, car washes. So even if you're not prepared for self-catering, you could go in and self-cater, because almost anything you need you can find within the park. And I can think of any park in the world or nature reserve that is better than Kruger as far as that goes. It really is a self-contained wildlife reserve. It's easy to self-drive, even in a compact car. You do not need any sort of four-wheel drive truck type thing. Some of the rest camps organise night drives. It's in like an open bus or truck thing, and there's the possibility to then see wildlife that you wouldn't normally see in the daytime, like some of the smaller cats and owls and things like that. Crowds. Well, You've probably seen some of the footage. It can get very busy, especially at big cat sightings, and more especially on weekends and public holidays. Drivers can become aggressive at a sighting, and some visitors show no respect for the wildlife. There is no off-road driving. So if someone's seen a cheetah and it's moved from where they first saw it under a bush 25 metres away, and it's sitting down, you can't really see it, but you know it's there, you can't drive off-road to go and see the cheetah. It's more of a lottery to see all of the big five, especially the cats. You can be very lucky, or you could spend a week and not see the big five. It's definitely more of a lottery than going to a private game reserve. You may need 2 weeks or so to get the sort of sightings and the quality of sightings. In fact, I don't know if you could get the quality of sightings in 2 weeks in Kruger that you would get in a private game reserve. This could even out the cost. So if you think you go to a private game reserve and you get a lot of good sightings within 3 days because you can go off-road and there's such good communication between the rangers, or spend 2 weeks and you may see the big five, but the quality mightn't be great. You know, you may see a leopard slinking off somewhere and go, I've seen the big five, as opposed to a private game reserve where you go off-road and the cat's within a few metres of you. It's not as good as wildlife for wildlife photographers for the same reason. There's not as many close-up encounters with cats, for instance, in Kruger as you would get in a private game reserve, and certainly you would not get the quality of photos in the main going into Kruger National Park as you would in a private game reserve. So in conclusion, I'm not going to call which one's a winner. Depending on what you're looking for, you really can't go wrong either way. So thanks for watching. Bye for now.